Do not besmirch the good name of Frasier Crane by having Crane in your name and being toxic. The Crane family is a proud history in the Pacific Northwest of very positive mental health outreach. They were both therapists, and then you come in here spreading toxicity and negativity. Niles is low-key toxic. Niles is not toxic. He's in a bad marriage, okay? He's just snide. He's not toxic. He has a biting wit. Frasier is a class traitor. Twitch chat trying to decide whether they hate Frasier because he became rich or they hate Frasier's dad because he's a police officer. Guy sweating, thinking of what button he's gonna hit. People say 1312, and yet everybody smiles when Frasier's dad's on the screen. Make it make sense. Frasier is a boomer show. Yeah? Yes? It's correct. What's a non-boomer show anyway? When I think of non-boomer shows, I think of Bob's Burgers, and I'm telling you that's not a bucket you want to be poured into. Why the Bob's Burgers hate? It's not hate. I just think it's bad. No, that's not even fair. I just think it's not good. I'm sorry. I just think, like, the amount of respect that I see for Bob's Burgers, I feel like nobody ever says, like, oh, Bob's Burgers is such a good show. Instead, they say something like, it's such an accurate appraisal of, like, actual teenage life. Like, look at Tina Belcher. And I'm like, okay, I already lived a teenage life. I would rather, like, my show be good. Or they're like, oh, Bob's Burgers does such a good job of modeling, like, a healthy heterosexual marriage between Bob and his wife. And I'm like, okay, could they make it funny on top of that? I already had that shit in the form of my parents. I'm sick of it. Show me some home lives that are completely fucked up. That's why I watch 90 Day Fiancé when I see that it's on. Give me just just make it good. Do all the good stuff and also make it good. These are the takes of a broken man. I don't feel very broken right now. These are, I mean, again, they're not takes. They're just opinions. Maybe it's the modern day Simpsons, and because I'm older, I'm like, I already got the Simpsons. Maybe for the generation that's coming out right now, if God willing, I remain a streamer for the next, 12 years, maybe I'll be inundated by like semi-ironic deep fried Bob's Burgers memes in the 2030s. People will be like, oh, you're being a real Stan Belcher right now. And I'll be like, who's Stan Belcher? And they'll be like, you didn't see Bob's Burgers? And I'll be like, I was 37 when it was on the air. And then they'll be like, okay, silent generation. But you gotta recognize, if you're younger than I am, some of the things, like, people will be like, oh, old people don't get X thing. That's what you want. Because then you build a little bubble around your generation where you have a shared experience you can relate to. And when you go to college, at your first dorm room party, you'll be like, oh, dude, Bob's Burgers posters. I used to love that show when I was 9. By the way, Dark Masago, thanks for the gifted subscription. You shouldn't be mad that people 15 years older than you don't necessarily like the same things. It's good. I've got my shared experiences with my generation. My parents have their shared generational experiences. I don't want to be the guy who's like bald, wearing a Mickey Mouse Hawaiian shirt, walking around talking to 19-year-olds going like, hey, did you guys see the new episode of Steven Universe? It's fucking weird, dude. I grew up watching like Cops. Let me just be with my fellow millennials and be canceled for it or something. I don't know. I was born when I was born. I think it's way like when and I don't know if everybody agrees with this. Sometimes you see like an older person who looks good. You're like, they took care of themselves. They dress nicely. They're well-groomed. But when old people look good, they still usually look their age. When you see someone that's like 70 and they look 35, you're like, what happened? That's not right. Like when you see, I see it now and then, especially if we are at some of the department stores in downtown Vancouver, you'll see a 70-year-old guy. He'll have Lance Bass's haircut. He'll be wearing one of those bomber bags. It's kind of like a fanny pack slash messenger bag, and then a Gucci shirt that just says Gucci across, and then incredibly short shorts. And you're like, it's okay, man. You could just be like a hot 70-year-old. You don't have to pretend to be in your 30s to be. You could just be a hot 70-year-old. I'm sure there's lots of 70-year-olds around that if you just put on like a button-up shirt and then draped a sweater's sleeves and tied them and then had some chinos on and then some boat shoes, they would be like, let's go. But instead, you're dressed like I don't even know. I'm trying to think of. I was gonna say Simon Cowell, but anyway, this is why I don't like Bob's Burgers.